So, okay, in my previous class, I have already talked about the motivation of public key crypto system. So, let me recall a bit about the whole thing. So, in public key crypto system, the basic idea is both the sender as well as the receiver, they will not have the luxury to have the same key. That means they may stay far apart, or the receiver may not know the sender. So in that scenario, it would be difficult for them to have a common key agreement. So now I'm going to explain once again the RSA public key crypto system. So that crypto system was basically based on the hardness assumption that factorization is hard. So we know that for small numbers, these factorizations are quite easy because we can do it by hand or by some machine. But if I give you this big number, then it's really difficult for you or your small machine to compute or to factor this. And as I mentioned in my last class, that this is not only for you or for your small machine, but this is very difficult for the supercomputer as well to factor this big number as the product of these two big primes. So two questions comes to our mind, that are they really primes? If they are prime, how did I get this? In our course, I will give you a brief idea how to get these big primes by using your small laptop or small computer, that you will find shortly, maybe after 2 or 3 classes. And the idea is, if you have these two big primes, then you can make a product of these two big primes to get this value n. But if you have n, then till now there is no efficient algorithm known which can use the supercomputer even to get back this p and q. That means it's a kind of one way. From p and q you can go back to n, but from n it's very difficult to get back to p and q. So that's the basic idea of this whole scheme. Okay, so based on that, for the first time in around 1978, three great cryptographers, Rivest, Shamir, and Edelman. So that's why before their name, based on their name, Rabin, Shamir, and Edelman. So that's why this scheme is known as RSA public key crypto system. As I mentioned, in RSA public key crypto system, if sender wants to send some message to the receiver, then it's the duty for the receiver first to start. So the receiver will first make the infrastructure. Based on that infrastructure, the sender will send the message. So in case of RSA public key crypto system, as I have mentioned, that this scheme is based on product of two big primes. So the receiver first will choose two big primes p and q. They must be of the same size. Why they are of the same size, I mentioned it earlier. And then she will compute the product of these two p and q. Then she is going to compute phi of n. So here phi of n is nothing but p minus 1 into q minus 1, because phi, this is Euler phi function. Since n is a product of two distinct primes p and q, so that must be due to the multiplicative property of phi, we must have phi of pq, that is same as phi p into phi q, and the value of phi p is p minus 1 and the value of phi q is q minus 1. As I mentioned in my last class, that like factorization, till now no good algorithm is known to calculate phi n unless you have the prime factorization of n. That means if you know the prime factorization of n, then calculating phi n is very easy. But if you don't have the prime factorization of n, then there is no known method which can efficiently find the value of phi n. So that is again based on that assumption, this scheme is uh, till now secure. So how? So the what the next step that she is going to do? So she will choose a positive integer e such that GCD of e and phi n equal to 1. So then she is going to compute, since GCD of e and phi n equal to 1, she is going to calculate this d, so where ed is congruent to 1 mod phi n. Okay, so that means d is the multiplicative inverse of e. Now she has all the ingredients in her hand. So that is the public value, public key, that is n and e, and she will keep with her the private, the value of p, q and d. So these are the infrastructure. That means she is going to publish the value of n and e, and she will keep with her the value of p, q and d. So that is done. Now is the time for the sender to react. So as he wants to send the message, his first work will be to collect the value of n and e. So they are the public value. So n and e are the public value that she is going to have, what she has already made public. So he is going to collect this value n and e, then he will choose the message m in such a way that he is going to convert this message m in such a way that that should lie within this range 0 and n. So in my last class, I have already mentioned one of the techniques how to convert this m into integers. Then he will simply compute m to the power e modulo n, and he will send this value c to the uh, recipient. So c is nothing but the m to the power e modulo n. So this is again an integer which is less than n. Now it's a time for the girl to react. How? She will collect this value c, because this is the ciphertext, and she is going to calculate c to the power d, because note that this d value is the private to her, that means that is known only to her. Based on that value, she is going to calculate c to the power d modulo n, and I have shown in my last class in detail how this value of c to the power d is congruent to m. So see, this m value is nothing but the original plain text that the sender wanted to send. And since this is an integer, so this may not be the original plain text, but the method through which the original plain text was shifted from the character to integer, that may be known to this receiver, and she is going to convert this value to the original message. So that's how this works, and based on that, this public key crypto system worked. Okay, so that is quite well known. Now the question is, if you look at down a bit, then so this is say this is step was receiver made, and this is known to all. So this is known to in particular by the sender, and here the adversary is trying to look at. Okay, so this is suppose the adversary. So the adversary also knows this value of n. So let us try to see what the adversary knows. So the adversary knows the value of n and e because they are public. So since that is known to s, the sender, that should also be known to the adversary. Okay, then what the sender will do, sender will receive this value of n and e, and she will calculate m and sends m to the power e modulo n, right? This is nothing but c. So c will be sent to the receiver. Since this is an insecure channel, that will also be known to the adversary. That means c, which is nothing but m to the power e modulo n. Okay, now this value d is known only to her and not known to the receiver. So what are the things that adversary knows? Now you can see that adversary knows the value of n, e and c. Now from here the adversary want to calculate the value of m. So that is his main target, to get the value of m out of c. Now try to guess what could be the adversary's attack strategy. See, he knows all the algorithm, like he knows that E to the E and D, they are relatively prime, phi of n. Okay. So if he will able to get the value of D, then he is done basically, because he knows C, and if he can make C to the power D, then he knows that that value has to be modulo M modulo N, and that is nothing but the plain text. So if he comes to know the value of D, then that is done. Okay. Now how to get this value of D? To know the value of D from E and N, he needs to calculate the value of phi n. As I mentioned, unless you know the factorization of n, that is, unless you know the value of P and Q, so any one of the values of P and Q, if you know, as n is a product of P and Q, so if you know P, then you suddenly know the value of Q. But as I mentioned, this P and Q, these values are not public. These values are kept secret to the receiver, those who made this part, that means who made the infrastructure, that is P and Q is known to only her and not anybody else. As a result, the prime factorization of n is not known to the adversary or the sender. As a result, as I mentioned, it is really difficult to calculate the value of phi n from n. That's why for the adversary, it is difficult to calculate phi n. As a result, he won't be able to find the value of E from, sorry, the value of D from E as well as phi n. So that is first observation. That's why he won't be able to find Dn. Sorry, he won't be able to find the value of D. As a result, he will not be able to directly calculate C to the power D, because he knows the value of C, he knows the value of N, but he has no clue about the value of D, because to know D, he needs to calculate the value of phi n in a direct approach. So that way, this scheme may be considered to be secure. That means this scheme is mostly dependent on the fact that till now we do not have any efficient algorithm to factor in terms of P and Q, where P and Q are big primes. So based on that, this scheme is considered to be secure. Now I am going to give you, and you will be surprised to know that this scheme is still now quite secure. As I mentioned, not in a direct form, some elliptic curve schemes are involved with this RSA crypto system to have more efficient way of implementation. That's why they are elliptic curve RSA crypto system and so on. So there, till now, this kind of schemes are quite useful. Today I will go you give idea of that, how they're useful. But before that, let me give you some of the drawbacks of the scheme, but they are not really a drawback of the scheme, but that is the inherent property that the scheme has. Okay. So based on that, I will show you few of the attacks on RSA public key crypto system. Okay. So suppose, let me again consider a kind of fictitious story, that suppose some company wants to sell some very precious image of some artist. Okay. So since it's a pandemic situation, everybody decided that okay, it's not to have the bidding process. That means in Bengali we call it nilam. So you cannot have this bidding process in a physical place. So it has to be a kind of online bidding process. Okay. So everybody will bid online using some technique. And this guy, this person who wants to bid it, or the company, the management of the company who wanted to do that, they decided that we will make it in a very transparent way. That means whatever be the bidding process will be very transparent, and in future nobody should give a kind of blame that something fishy thing happened with that. So everything should be very transparent. So they decided that they will go it for a very good encryption scheme, and suddenly RSA crypto system came into their mind. Okay, so they decided that the process will be like this. I'll just try to explain it by a drawing. Suppose they want like this. Suppose they want to bid the image, and many of the individuals they are going to bid. Okay, so the idea is whoever will pay the highest value of amount of money, the image will be given to, the picture will be given to that guy or boy or girl, whatever. So everybody will bid. That means everybody will give up kind of price, and whoever will be the highest bidder, the picture will be sold to him or her. So everybody say A, B, C are there who wants to bid. So suppose A wants to bid, say suppose 100 say pound, or say $100 or euro, whatever. Okay, say B wants to bid say 110 US dollar, and C wants to bid say 90 US dollar. So you can understand that B is the highest bidder, so the picture will be sold to B. But as they are not doing in a physical places, so as that will be done in a online mode, so the company decided that everybody will use some encryption technique, and that encryption technique has to be uniform. So they have decided they are going to use RSA, public key crypto system. So as I mentioned, it's a public key. It should have two aspects. One is public one, and another one is private. So suppose N and E is the public value, and they kept it P, Q, and D. Okay. So they will announce in their website, the company will announce the public value in their website. So everybody will come to know the value of N and E. So what the A will do? A will simply do say 100 to the power E modulo N. Okay. So that is his ciphertext. So he is C1 or CA. Similarly, what C will do? C will do 90 to the power E modulo N, and this is C of C, and C of B is nothing but 101 to the power E modulo N. Okay. So everybody will send the encrypted value of their bidding to the company. So company will upload it. So in the website of company, company will publicly make CA, CB, CC, and they have already given the value of N and E. So there will be some kind of deadline. Say today is 27th, maybe 29th will be the deadline for submitting your bidding, and in the say in the midnight of 27th or 28th, the company will announce the value of D, which was kept public initially, sorry, kept private initially. So the value of D is now revealed at the say midnight of 28th. Now everybody can find what is the value of others. So now say you get, say A wants to check, so A knows his or her quoting price, but now she wants to find what are the quoting values of B and CB and CC. So he will simply calculate CB to the power D and CC to the power D. So A on her or his own can verify the value of the original plain text, say PB or PC. So everybody can verify what could be the values of others, and as a result, very publicly they will announce that, okay, say here we can see that uh, B is the winner. So they will get 101, 110. So he is the highest bidder. So the picture will be sold to B. So that is the idea. Is the bidding process clear to all of you? In Bengali, we call it Nilam. So whoever will give you the best price, the thing or the commodity will be sold to him or her. Is it clear to all of you? Is the bidding process is clear to all of you? If not, then I can again repeat. Okay, so hope it's understood. Okay, so let me explain now in a graphical way. So suppose this company wants to sell this precious picture, and many of them they are going to bid, but the bidding here is little bit different. They are going to bid it online. Okay, and will be the highest bidder. So here you can see that 33 is the highest bidder. So the picture will be sold to the person having who bidded 33. Okay. So as I mentioned, the first step will be the company is going to give the public value. So here is the public, sorry, here is the secret value. So the secret value here is P is this big, Q is this, and the decryption exponent is this. So I have calculated it, and they are going to make public this value, the n value and the encryption value. So n is nothing but this product of these two primes, and e is something which is relatively prime to phi of n, and e and this d, if you make a product and then if you take modulo n, then you will get 1. That means e and d are multiplicative inverse of each other. Okay, so these are the public entity and this is the private entity. So everybody can see this, but nobody else other than this company management, they won't be able to see this value before some of the expected deadline. Okay, after that, suppose this guy wants to buy it and he has given a bid of 100. So for the sake of simplicity, 100 means 100, say 100 into some big value, 1000 or something. So this is the unit, and I can multiply it suitably for the sake of simplicity. So I just put 100. If it is 100, then the value will be say 100 into 100 uh, rupees. Okay, so say suppose this is in euro or pound. So for the sake of simplicity, I just whatever would be the value, I will just make it a 20 at the end to convert it into Indian rupees. Okay, so based on this 100, that means actual Indian rupee is 100 into 100, that means 10,000. If the bidding value is 10,000, based on this encryption and encryption exponent and n, the value of this, that means 1000 to the power e modulo n is this value. Okay, so he is the first bidder who has given this value. Now the point is, whenever somebody bids, a guy came and he again bids on his own. Okay, so based on this bidding, this guy bids his value as this. So this is the ciphertext of some bidding value made by this boy. Again, another guy, say she has given 999, means 999 into 100, that means 99900 Indian rupee. And based on that, suppose the ciphertext is this, that means 99900 to the power e modulo n is this value, C3. Okay, again when this guy, this girl gave this value, the boy again came and the boy has submitted this value. Nobody knows based on what he has given this value. Okay, suppose so we have we get four ciphertext, that means four bidding were there, four bidding values were there, two of them, and so these two they have given their own value, and this boy has given two values corresponding to each of this bid. So now the company sees that we get four bidding values. based on the advertisement, say the deadline is over, now the company has given the private key values. Okay, now everybody can decrypt it, so everybody can see that, so it was the 1000, 10,000 based on that, but this value was 10,000 and 100. Okay, now this girl has given 99900, so the decryption of this C3 is M3, but the decryption of C4 is 100899. So who is the highest bidder? You can see that the highest bidder is C4, that means this boy. So the picture is sold to this boy. Now the question is, what actually happened here? If you look it quite carefully, you can see that this is 10,000 and this is nothing but 10,000 and 100. So can you tell me what is the percentage of this? So how much increase of 10,000 to 10,100? How much percentage is bigger this?
1%, sir.
Huh?
1% increase.
1% increase of the plain text value of M1. Now if you look at M3, and what is the increase here? Can you find?
1%, sir. Again,
Again,
1%.
again 1% increase of that. That means this value, so as I mentioned, as soon as M1 was quoted, the boy has given this, and this is very well calculated, exactly 1% increase of this value. As, as soon as M3 was given, the boy has again given a value which is nothing but the 1% increase of M3. Now see, this boy, if we consider this as an adversary, then this boy does not have the access of D nor P and Q. He only has the access of M1 to the power E or M3 to the power E. Based on that, how he can exactly increase 1% on the plain text. That means it's quite interesting. See, this bad guy has only the access of, so this was M1, and the boy send it as M1 to the power E modulo N, which was nothing but C1. That means the attacker, what is the information that is gained by attacker? That is, he knows N, he knows the value of E, and he knows the value of C1. Now what he has done, he has done he has submitted C2 in such a way that C2 is nothing but the decryption of C2 is nothing but the 1% increase of that whole value. So this is nothing but 1% increase of the whole value. So the question is, without knowing the plain text, how the boy or the adversary can increase the value of the plain text? That is quite interesting, and that is known as bidding attack. So if you see, okay, so the idea is like this. First property for RSA is, this is an homomorphic encryption. That means if you remember, what is the encryption of M? Encryption of M is nothing but M to the power E. So I must put it capital E. Encryption of M is nothing but M to the power E modulo N. Okay. Now what will happen if I consider M1 and M2? What is this value? This is nothing but M1 M2 to the power E modulo N. Since everything is on the commutative group, we can consider this m1 to the power e modulo n, m2 to the power e modulo n, and that is nothing but e of m1 into e of m2. Okay, so that is the basic idea how the adversary can manipulate without knowing the plain text. Let me explain the basic idea of this attack. Now this homomorphic property is clear to all of you, I am sure. Okay, let me try to understand what happened. Okay, so the plain text C1 or the ciphertext C1 was made like this: m1 to the power e modulo n, right? So the adversary knows this value but has no clue about this. But the basic aim for the adversary is to increase 1% of the value of m1. What is 1% increase of the value of m1? That is m1 into 101 by 100. So if I calculate this, this will give me the 1% increase of the value of m1, right? Okay. Now, if you look at in Zn star or Zn, whatever you can find, so it should be Zn star or Un, as I mentioned, Un, 101 by this is nothing but 101 times 100 inverse, multiplicative inverse of 100. So the question is how I will be able to guarantee that 100 inverse exists in Un or Zn star. If you remember that Zn star, what is n? N is a product of two very big primes, right? P and Q. And in 100, we know that this is the product of only 2 and 5 with some powers. Suddenly, since P and Q are two big primes, suddenly 2 and 5 must be relatively prime to both P and Q. As a result, 100 and n must be relatively prime. This part is clear? Again, I am repeating. In 100, you have only two primes, 2 and 5. In n, you have P and Q, where P and Q are two big primes. As a result, these 2 and 5, both of them, they must be relatively prime to both P and Q. As a result, multiplicative inverse of 2 will exist in n, multiplicative inverse of 5 will also exist in n. Similarly, multiplicative inverse of their product, that is 100 inverse, will also exist in n, Zn or Zn star. As a result, you will have this inverse will exist here. Now, if I have the 1% increase of m1 to the power e, then what will happen? That will be nothing but the ciphertext, which is 1% increase of the plain text m1. So this is nothing but, I can write it like m1 to the power e modulo n into 101 into 100 inverse modulo n to the power e. So both to the power e. See, this part is already known to the adversary. The only thing he needs to this, he will first calculate how much he wants to reduce. Say he wants to reduce or increase by 1%, then he will calculate 101 into 100 inverse to the power e. This value of e is known to him. He will calculate simply 101 into 100 inverse to the power e modulo n. Whatever will be the value, he will just multiply this with m to the power e. As a result, he will get this value. Okay. So C, what is C2? C2 is nothing but M1 into 101 into 100 inverse to the power E modulo n. This part, so you can write it like this: M1 to the power E into 101 into 100 inverse to the power E modulo n. Now see, this part, this part is known to the adversary because this is the public value that the first participant or the first boy has already submitted to the website of the company. He is just going to use M1. So here you can see that uh, C2, which is nothing but the product of M1 into this, right? Now if you just make C2 to the power D, what you will get? You will get basically this value, M1 into 101 by 100 modulo n. That is nothing but 1% increase in the value of M1. Clear? That means without having any knowledge about M1 and having the knowledge of D and N and E, not D, sorry, N and E, the adversary can increase 1% of the value of M1 as a ciphertext. When you are going to decrypt D2, you will get the value of M2 in such a way which is nothing but 1% increase of the value of M1. So there is nothing interesting about 1%. If you want to make it 10%, you just make it like this. Instead of 101, you just put 110. That will be 10% increase of that, and so on. So that is why this scheme is vulnerable if you are going to use the scheme in case of bidding scenario. Now we are going to have some more encryption properties which can be exploited. Uh, Please have a look at the chapter 12 one, where you can find that where you will find more attacks. There are same exponent, small exponent attack, or the same message if you want use using same message with different ease or different exponent components. Then you may find different attacks on it, and that can be, you can see this attacks uh, there. Okay, so please have a look at the chapter 12 of that, few more attacks on RSA public key crypto system. So now I am going to give you another important aspect which is known as key agreement protocol by Diffie and Hellman. Okay, so let me explain what is key agreement protocol by Diffie and Hellman. Okay, so before that, first let us have a look at another problem which is known as discrete logarithm problem. Discrete logarithm problem. Discrete logarithm problem. So what is that? Suppose we have a cyclic group. Say, for example, we know that if P is a prime, then ZP star is a cyclic group. So it must have some generator, say G, right? So all the elements could be expressed in terms of G. Now suppose I am given an element X belongs to ZP star. Okay, then for mathematician it's quite easy that there must exist some A such that X equal to G to the power A, because this is an element of this group and G is the generator. Since it's a multiplicative group, so there must exist some A such that G to the power A must be equal to X. So that's quite trivial for mathematician. But like factorization problem, this is also very difficult for a computer scientist to find the value of A if you are given X and G. That means I will give you the group, say ZP star, the generator, and an element X, arbitrary element. So this will be your input. What you need to give to me? You need to return me the value of A such that G to the power A equal to X. So you may think that okay, I will start with G, G square, G cube and so on. One day suddenly I will get some A such that G to the power A equal to X. But unfortunately, if you continue with this, then the basic problem will be the size. So usually we consider G to be say 1000 digit long. Okay, if ZP star, if the size of ZP star is 1000 digit long, not 1000, I am talking about 1000 digit long. So this is digit long. Then you can understand this would be a huge number. And if you want to continue with all possible G, G square, GQ and so on, certainly for a mathematician, one day you will certainly get some a unique A for which G to the power A equal to X. But now you can think about the machine, how the machine will calculate for such a big, huge number. You will be surprised to know that till now, no efficient algorithm is yet known which can solve this problem. That's why this problem is said to be a believed to be hard problem, and this problem is known as discrete logarithm problem. So what is your aim? Your aim to find this value A. Now you can see that if you simply do like in case of log, when we do log, say log base G, then what you will get? This is nothing but A. So the value of A is nothing but log X base G. But remember, you cannot make it a log because this is not a continuous case. This is a discrete one. You are on the ZP star or group of units or any group where you may not have the concepts of continuity. As a result, you cannot really apply the log values or log approximation. But since the idea looks like log, it is known as discrete logarithm problem. So in short, it is called DLP, discrete logarithm problem. And like factorization problem, this is also a considered to be, assumed to be a problem which is believed to be a hard problem. Okay. So based on this discrete logarithm problem, a scheme that was done by Diffie and Hellman. So this is known as DH key agreement protocol. Key agreement protocol. So please have a look at chapter 12 of my book. There you will find this idea of discrete logarithm problem. Okay. So the question is, what is discrete logarithm problem? That I have already explained. Now, based on this discrete logarithm problem, the idea of key agreement first came into picture. As I mentioned, the public key idea was first invented in around, the concrete idea was 1976. But before that, Diffie and Hellman, they first bring the idea of public key crypto system. They could not provide us a actual public key crypto system, but they have given the idea how similar thing can be done in case of insecure channel communication. So basic idea is, suppose A wants to send some message to B through some insecure channel. That's why they cannot use the same key here. The same key they cannot use because they don't have the luxury to communicate with each other with the same key. So the same key cannot be used because they cannot share the common key. because some adversary is there to listen what is being sent. As a result, they cannot use any symmetric key crypto system directly. So the question is how they are going to communicate with each other even if some adversary is there, which was actually the basic motivation for public key crypto system. So here let us Diffie and Hellman first gave a protocol for that. What was the protocol? Suppose this is the sender and this is the receiver. So this protocol means some steps. That means both of them should follow some steps. So initially both of them they decide upon a common key, say common prime P, a large prime P. That means they say over insecure channel. He says that okay, let us choose P equal to say something to S. That means the adversary also knows the value of P because that is done through insecure channel. Okay. Then they consider say ZP star. Then they consider a generator G. That means G is also known to all. G is also known to all. That means to the adversary. That means in the basic step, both sender and receiver using some insecure channel, they decided that they are considering ZP star where P is a public quantity with a generator G which is also a public quantity. As a result, adversary also knows P and Q. Okay. Then it starts with sender chooses a secret integer A and the receiver chooses a secret integer B. That means A and B they are secret to both S and R. That means A and B are not communicated using insecure channel. Then the second step would be the sender calculates G to the power A and the receiver calculates G to the power B. Okay. Then the sender sends this and the receiver sends this. That means G to the power B is sent by this guy and he sends G to the power A. That means G to the power A and G to the power B are known to the adversary. Clear? Now what the this guy has? This guy has G to the power A at her end, at his end, and he has G to the power B as his end because they came through insecure channel. Now can you explain what could be their common key? Any guess what could be their common key?
Sir, G to the power AB.
Yes. Since he has G to the power B, he can calculate G to the power B to the power A, which is nothing but since this is done in commutative group, G to the power AB. Similarly, since he knows G to the power A and B is there with his hand, he can calculate G to the power A to the power B. That is nothing but G to the power AB. Since this is in a commutative group. So at the end of this day, both of them, they have these two values common, right? Now have a look at what are the information that the adversary gathered. The adversary gathered the value of P, the generator, GA and GB. Now I am saying that how to calculate the value of G to the power AB from this value. If the adversary can compute the value of G to the power AB from this value, then he is done basically. Now try to find the value of G to the power AB from this information. How to calculate G to the power of AB from this information? Somebody? So you have G to the power A you have g to the power b, you have g, you have p. What you need to calculate, you need to calculate g to the power of ab. Question is how to do that. Any guess? Any guess?
Sir,
Yes.
GA আর GB কে প্রথমে গুণ করো।
GA আর GB কে যদি, if you are going to multiply GA and GB,
A
then you
plus
will g to the power a plus b. Yes.
এবার এটাকে হোল স্কয়ার করছি।
Then
হোল স্কয়ার G
you
to
are making it whole square.
A plus B এর হোল স্কয়ার। ওটাকে হোল
Okay.
স্কয়ার।
How will you make a plus b whole square?
ওটাকে তো হোল স্কয়ার। বলে
Okay.
তবে AB হয়ে যাবে। না না সরি।
Then you will get 2 of this, not whole square.
না না জিরোটা হবে।
Yeah, it was a good try, but then you will not get a whole square. You will get 2 into
2 into
a plus b. Yes. Yeah.
হোল স্কয়ার
Then
করলে করা যাবে। হোল স্কয়ার
yeah.
করে
So any other guess? Any other guess? Okay. If you find that, how to get this? One of the very easiest way would be from GA, find the value of A. If you are able to find the value of A, then you are done basically. Then you know g to the power b and then g to the power b to the power a. That will be easy for you. But as I just now mentioned that from g to the power a, finding a is a believed to be hard problem because there is no efficient algorithm known for arbitrary group. That's why this scheme is secure. So this scheme is considered to be secure with respect to discrete logarithm problem. But remember, there are few groups in which this discrete logarithm problem is easy. For example, if the group is a product of, if the value of p minus 1, so you understand the value of this order of group is p minus 1. If the p minus 1 is not, has very small, so 2 is always a factor, right? But if it has many smaller prime factors, then in that group the discrete logarithm problem is easy to break. That is why it is assumed that the value of p minus 1 is such a way that it does not have a smaller prime factor except for 2. So it should look like, it should be of this form: p minus 1 should be, must be of this form 2q plus 1, where 2q is itself a large prime. If you assume this, so you need to choose. So this guys first need to choose the values of p and q, right? So not here, the values of p they need to choose in their protocol. So in their protocol, when they are going to choose this value of p, the p should be like that, that p minus 1 is an even number, that's why it should look like 2 into q, where q is a large prime. So they choose p in such a way that p minus 1 should be a product of 2 and a large prime. If you consider this prime to be p, because r and s they are going to first choose p, they choose p in such a way that the p should be of the form 2q plus 1, where q is a large prime. Then we call this kind of p as a safe prime, safe prime. And within that, for that p, the Diffie-Hellman problem is really hard problem. Okay, so based on that, the scheme came, and that is known as Diffie-Hellman key exchange protocol. See what happened if they are able to find both of them, both sender and the receiver, at the end of this protocol, both sender and the receiver, they will able to calculate after few trial and after few here and there communication. At the end of the day, they will finally compute this value which is not known to the adversary. So this g to the power ab is not known to the adversary, but both sender and the receiver, they will have this common value, and henceforth they may use this value as the symmetric key. Then they can use any of the symmetric keys that are available. That's why this is known as key agreement protocol in the insecure channel. You have insecure channel, but still, even if you have the luxury to communicate with each other at the beginning, they cannot say that okay, both of us have the same key, but at the end of the protocol they will have g to the power ab and g to the power ab as their common key, and that key can be used for symmetric key crypto system. So that was the first basic idea, how through insecure channel how you are going to communicate. But they failed to give, Diffie and Hellman, they failed to give the idea of public key crypto system. That's why RSA was the first public key crypto system which was given, that both sender and the receiver, they will have two different keys. That's why that is known as asymmetric key. But here both the senders and the receivers, they will have the same key. That's why that is known as the symmetric key crypto system. Clear? Is it clear to all of you? Diffie-Hellman key exchange protocol. That's why this is quite important, and till now Diffie-Hellman key exchange protocols are used. So usually when we communicate over internet, so at the beginning stage, that is known as handshaking stage, when the browser communicates with server, then at the first stage they don't have any common key. So at the handshaking protocol stage, both the server at your machine, your browser will first communicate with the server using some insecure channel. At that time there is no security, but when the server responds to you, the server gave you few choices, like do you want to use RSA crypto system with this public value this, or do you want to use Diffie-Hellman key exchange protocol with the values of p and g as like this. So when your browser chooses out of these two one of the options, then they are secure, because then after that whatever they are going to communicate, they will use some secure symmetric key crypto system. For example, AES is one of the mostly popular and mostly common used symmetric key crypto system. For symmetric key crypto system, both the ends, they should have the same key. So either you are going to use public key crypto system, or if you are going to use symmetric key crypto system, the first stage should be to have at the both end the common key, and that common key is basically established through your server and your browser by using this Diffie-Hellman key exchange protocol. So till now they are very useful, and that is based on discrete logarithm problem. Okay, clear? Now I am going to give you another very important term, that is known as, so this is the handshaking protocol. You might have seen that SSL or TLS handshaking protocol. You can Google it, then you will find that what are the things that, so this is your laptop or mobile something, and it communicates with, say, some of the servers, say bank server. Okay, so when they, at the first stage when they send some message, it is not encrypted, because your browser does not know that the bank is using which crypto system. So these informations are being first communicated with each other with few rounds. Then after few rounds, they agree that okay, after that we are going to use this symmetric key or this asymmetric key. When they have decided this, then all the things are secure. Okay, so this is known as handshaking protocol. Now I am going to explain you in a very brief way, but if you want to have a look at in a broader way, then you must go to the website of WhatsApp. There you can just try with end-to-end encryption white page of WhatsApp in the Google. If you Google it with the name end-to-end encryption white page by WhatsApp, you will get the detailed of it. But I'll just give you the basic idea. It is quite involved, but I just give you the higher version of that idea so that you will have the motivation how the public key crypto system plays an important role here. So in while you are going to use this WhatsApp, most of the time you are very much frequently acquainted with the term end-to-end encryption. So what is that meaning and what it actually works in a broader sense? Let me explain. So suppose the sender wants to send some message to the girl, both of them they are using WhatsApp. So as I mentioned, like public key crypto system, it's the girl who should take the initiative first to have the infrastructure. That means the girl should first install WhatsApp. When the girl installed WhatsApp, two things happened. So at the time of installation, one public key and one private key are generated. So this private key is kept secret within the mobile of that girl. Okay, and this public key is transferred to the server of WhatsApp. So when we install the WhatsApp, two things happened. The private key is kept secret with the mobile and the public key is sent to the server. Now the server has the public key of that girl. Now when the boy wants to send some message to the girl, he first send a request to the server that please give me the public key of that girl. I want to send some message. When the server finds that okay, she has already installed the WhatsApp, so she must have the public key, he the server sends the public key of that girl to the boy. So based on that public key, the boy makes some encryption of the original message and sends the encrypted message, the locked message, to the server. So the message through server reaches to the girl. Now since the girl has the private key with her secret, only she can decrypt this message. Now see that the server even does not have the private key of that girl. That's why even if the message comes to the server, the WhatsApp company claims that they also won't be able to decrypt the message. So that's why it says that it's end-to-end encryption, because the encryption and the decryption process are being made at the end. That's why they are called end-to-end encryption process. Since the encryption is done at the end stages, that's why this is known as end-to-end encryption. And since the private key is only known to the girl, nobody else will able to get the message, original message. That's why they say that it's very secure even if the WhatsApp company won't be able to decrypt this. But as I mentioned, everything does have some uh, backdoors. So usually that is known as backdoor concept. So officially WhatsApp never discloses it, but if you Google it, then after a few research you will find that many of the researchers they have found that there are some backdoor method. For example, if FBI will ask, say, WhatsApp that give me the message of that guys, then what will WhatsApp will do? If it could be a kind of secure end-to-end encryption, then WhatsApp will also have to say that sorry, we cannot do that. But I'm not sure what WhatsApp is going to do. That's why few of the researchers they said that there are few backdoor methods in such a way that even if the WhatsApp company, they can send the encrypted message to the agencies like FBI or somebody in such a way that the sender and the receiver won't be able to guess that their message has already been sent to the some other agencies. That's why they are known as backdoor method, but officially they don't disclose it. So that's a few things, interesting things you must look at in the Google. But few more interesting things related to crypto, or why I am saying that this is in a very smaller or there are very big aspect of it. Why I am saying that this is, I just give you a very broad idea about end-to-end encryption. But if you look it quite carefully, few important questions that you must address. First of all, that during this end-to-end encryption, the company should ensure that no one else has read the message in transit. Okay. Secondly, the company should ensure that no one else has modified the message in transit. Third one is the message really comes from the sender. It should not be the case that somebody else has sent the message on behalf of this guy, so that there might be some miscommunication between this girl and this boy. Okay, that should not be the case. That means if he sends the message, the girl should be able to guarantee, or the company should able to guarantee that okay, this message must come from this boy and no one else. And lastly and most importantly, that at the end or later on, the sender should not deny that he has sent the message. That means there must be some clue through which you cannot have the liberty that after sending this message, you later on you cannot deny that you have not sent this message. So there are plenty of cryptographic primitives are involved for that. So in terms of cryptographic technical term, we call the first property as confidentiality. Second property, we call it integrity. Third property, we call it authenticity. And the last one, we call it non-repudiations. So based on, they are the four important properties that are involved with the terms involved with cryptography. And to achieve this important terms, few primitives are important. For example, that symmetric or asymmetric encryption schemes are there for to protect this. Hash functions, there is another important primitive in crypto which is known as hash function, that is important to ensure this property. Mac message authentication code is again another property which is quite important for this one, the third one. And the last one is known as signature scheme, which is basically to protect the last property. So they are all very important and very primitive properties of cryptography, which usually we talk about or discuss in our master's level course. When we teach our master level syllabus, there all the things are there. And as I mentioned in my last class, that last year the master's degree students, many of them, they actually did a project on end-to-end encryption, because all the things are there with our syllabus. As a result, it's quite easy for them to understand. But if you see the white page of end-to-end encryption given by WhatsApp, there you will find all the things are there, and they are discussed in great detail. So just have a at this stage, without knowing individual of this term, it's really difficult to understand them. But if you are interested, you are always welcome to have a look at that, and you can see what are the things exactly. So through this, what I want to mention that uh, for all of them, abstract algebra, number theory, and linear algebra, they play an important role. And in today's scenario, they are very much required to get the connectivity in a secure way. So they are quite important, and they are quite interesting as well. So the question that usually we had from our childhood or from our 11 12 level, that is there any applications of this algebra or number theory in our day-to-day life? So there is a place where you can see that there are plenty of applications of abstract algebra, linear algebra, number theory into our day-to-day life, especially when we are talking about cyber security and all. So that's all.